Emotions are a natural part of us, just as our hand or our arm is a natural part of us. As long as our hand and our arm is fine, it is a non-issue. And we usually don't think about that. You see what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of Golden Llama Show, where enlightenment is just a podcast away and where spirituality meets laughter. I'm your host, Andy, the Empath Guide, here to blend spirituality with laughter and give enlightenment a high five. Join me on this cosmic roller coaster ride through the realms of wisdom and wonder. Get ready to laugh, learn, and expand your consciousness. Today is an amazing day. We have been blessed with a special guest who has been doing amazing work, has a beautiful aura, and I can't wait to speak with him, Michael Dove. Michael Dove is a renowned spiritual master who has dedicated his life to the art of soul healing. With his profound knowledge and expertise in various spiritual practices, he has become a trusted guide for those seeking enlightenment and inner transformation. As a soul speaker, Michael Dove possesses the unique ability to connect with the deepest aspects of one being, helping individuals tap into their true potential and discover their life purpose. His disciples often describe him as a beacon of light who effortlessly navigates the realm of non-dualism, ecstasy, and divine consciousness. With years of experience as a numerologist, Michael Dove understands the intricate relationship between numbers and spirituality. He uses this ancient practice to decode hidden message within one's life path, unlocking valuable insights that can guide individuals toward their highest destiny. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on your podcast, Andy. It was wonderful having you on my podcast a little bit earlier. And so this is a wonderful opportunity.
In this day and age where people that claim to be spiritual are not spiritual, it's kind of funny, but when you understand how this word works, while we were speaking previously, I asked you about your surname, the Dove, and just the background for the background for the audience, because the name and surname programs you heavily in life, and I believe that the Dove is very powerful surname, as well as Michael, very powerful.
Yeah, well, it's actually very, very interesting. It has a certain amount to do with even why I am in India now. The name Dove, the Dove family in America, the name Dove, came from a queen, a Maharani, who lived in India in the 1600s, late 1600s. She was captured and put into slavery, and she was brought to the United States. Okay, this is all documented in the book Sold by the author Cynthia Marlowe. And I'll maybe give you a reference to the book a little bit later. But anyway, Maharani Narayan was captured and brought to the United States and made a slave. The name of the ship that brought her from India to the United States was called the Dove. And so she was living with the hope that the Narayan, the royal family, would eventually find her, which they did. So she took on the last name Dove and called herself Mary Dove, who is like my great grandmother. Okay. And then so she took on the name Dove, and so they were able to trace where she was, the royal family, and find her. And they had a big trial to release our family from the state of slavery, the Dove family, because they were descended from of a royal house, a royal family in India. So this is like the history of where the name came from. And then there were rather illustrious doves, throughout the history, including like a William Dove who fought under George Washington, and and then there are famous scientists and musicians and all of that, and poets and all of that. So there are lots of doves. There are lots of doves all over America now, and I am just one more in that sense. So that's where the name came from.
That's a beautiful name, even better story. And I have to ask, how do you think your name relates to your journey, or what your ancestors have been through to using that symbol as find this freedom to be free again? How does that relate to you?
Yeah, it was associated with a lot of strength and tenacity. It's like Mary Dove was a very, very strong individual, and she passed on a lot of her attitude and her traits and such. The lineage comes from like a priestly lineage. If one understands like ancestral karma and ancestral, genetics and epigenetic kinds of realities and such, I feel like it gave me a kind of a dimensional opportunity to activate my own spiritual nature, to sort of reach back in and activate some of these traits and aspects and such, which I have kind of spent my life nurturing within myself and trying to bring it forward. Through that, it actually led me to a great deal of study and powerful interest in actually multiple traditions, including like Native American, East Indian mysticism. I spent time in like the eastern part of Europe, hanging out and studying with Eastern European psychics. I spent time down in South America, meditating in the Andes, in the Mediterranean, living in a cave on the side of a cliff, overlooking the Mediterranean on the island of Crete, and doing all of these kinds of things as is in the mode of exploration, trying to cultivate and develop and polish a sense of wholeness and completeness that that I can begin to carry with me. And my favorite thing to do is to kind of invite other people into that kind of space, into that kind of vibe as well, and share. So this is in a very, very small nutshell, kind of like the nature.
Does this mean that searching externally, you have found your truth internally?
Yes, as we know, as above, so below, as within, so without. So in a sense, it's like it's all true. So it kind of doesn't matter where we start. It's more important to seek more awareness, whether we look within or without or whatever, to find a meaningful, satisfying sense of completion and wholeness and integration and clarity. So yes.
Like, if you know who you are, you know what to do, and you can stop fighting the thoughts, the emotions who are not you. And this is, for me, was a complete game changer, to stop being who I was supposed to be and start being who I am. And all this internal conflict just melted, dissolved. I'm like, that's so embarrassing. That took me so long, yet it was so easy. I should have done it ages ago.
Well, you're still young yet, and it's interesting because I have students and apprentices of various ages and such. So and of course it's never too late. This is what we're here for. now is always the right time. So,
You
that's what
mentioned
I was.
you mentioned before terms like epigenetics and ancestor. Could you explain to us what is it and how it might impact our day-to-day life?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you really think about it, it's like it's almost as if we are swimming in our epigenetic reality and our ancestral karma. It's like it's almost as if we are meeting it, fighting it, wrestling with it, sometimes celebrating it, reveling in it. So it's this is it is a pervasive reality in which we find ourselves. You see, so it's very important, in my opinion, to understand it, to explore it, because it's like, as anything, the more you know, the more you're able to access and leverage and make choices, make very, very wise, intelligent choices about uh about your life, and who you are, and be able to understand what is fulfilling for you, what one's destiny is, or how one actualizes as a being. And so it's a very great journey. It's like it represents a great journey that we are all offered.
It might never end.
Yeah, it just keeps going on, which is wonderful, which is fine.
It seems like wherever we go, we always take ourselves with us. So this
Mhm.
relationship that we have with ourselves is critical. If again we're struggling, fighting with ourselves, it's a loss of energy that we could invest somewhere else.
Yes.
I was meaning to ask,
Mhm.
what's destiny?
Destiny. It is, you see, that's the thing. When we look at destiny from a regular human experience, there's a tendency to put it way out there, way out in the future, as something that we are linearly challenged to kind of approach, to take that linear journey into that fulfillment. But if we look at it from another angle, we understand that destiny is something that is a truth that already lives within us, in which we are invited to discover, and it so it's an aspect of realization. Uh, we achieve that realization by looking within, becoming quiet, acknowledging what is true, and seeing and knowing the correlation between the external world and the internal world and such. And then, lo and behold, we find ourselves in our destiny. You see, so it's a function of realization, and so much of this is about simply becoming awake. It's like we become awake to what is. And it's interesting, because so many people ask me, it's like, well, how do you get to do what you do? How do you get to be a teacher? How do you get to do uh, have apprentices and teach and do all of these different things and such? And what I tell them is something that is almost too simple. It's almost too simple. What I tell them is that I simply pay attention. I just pay attention. You see, just acknowledge and see and witness what is around me, and I simply pay attention. And when you are encountering and meeting and witnessing and knowing simply what is, how to step, how to proceed, how to navigate becomes very natural and obvious. Becomes very natural and obvious and easy, and I would say even effortless. You, you see, and it's kind of funny because it's almost too simple for people. It's like sometimes humans, they crave complexity. They feel like if it's not complex, then how good could it be? If I did not work and struggle and almost die and become completely exhausted in order to get it, well, how could it be of any value? What's that about? You see? So it's like things can be, as I describe it, bedevilingly simple. You see, that's kind of like the paradox, the trick, the conundrum, if you will. It's like, well, this is all exceedingly simple, perhaps almost too simple.
Mm. And that is what confuses us because, as you said, we like to have it rough or hard, and instead using the straight road, we're going into circles, kind of like a dog chasing its own tail.
Uh,
Maybe what we would even do if we would actually reach our goals, what would happen
yeah,
then?
yeah, exactly. And so all of these are like actually very important questions. That this important questions kind of come through. One of the things I would say, and I say this a lot to like my students and such, it's like when you can really see and appreciate the absurdity and the humor of like the the condition, the reality, it's at that point that you can shift it, you can change it, you can let it go, because it's like, okay, I'm seeing the absurdity of this. I can feel comfortable in releasing it now. Now it's like it's done. It's like the souffle is finished now. We can take it out of the oven. It's done. And so it's like, it's really that, again, it's really that simple to be in appreciation of when I say the humor and the absurdity. When you discover the humor and the absurdity of something, I would suggest that what's happening is that you've discovered this play space, this play space that the universe has, that the Supreme has kind of set up, where it's like you are let into the cosmic joke, which means that you get to share in the laughter. You see, and then you can relax, and everybody can be present, simply be present and in enjoyment.
How can
So
you
that's, yeah.
how can you implement this mindset or technique, for example, in situation when your boss yells at you unjustly, you have a difference with your spouse? What could people do
Yeah.
then?
Oh, yeah. So we're talking about like the human condition, where almost everybody is. Okay, so it is utterly universal that we find ourselves in these kinds of situations, just as people simply. It is about, in those instances, learning to be mindful, learning to see the big picture, just sort of like detach from the drama and taking it personally, sort of step out of that. And when you do that, you shift the energy of the circumstance. It becomes reframed and shifted in such a way that that it becomes something you can engage and change into a better, a better, more comfortable situation. Another way of saying it is that you invoke a kind of transcendence, but it's it's something that we very much have to learn. It's like an art. Okay, this is where the practice and discipline and uh, all of the the teachings come in. So much of it is about cultivating our capacity to be in charge in these moments, in these instances as we engage, you see. And so it becomes a strength that we have, so that when we have a conflicting kind of situation, we can shift it in a very spontaneous way, easily and effortlessly. That's kind of like
Yeah, like knowledge without execution just takes space in your head, and there are countless ways you can achieve your goal, and no means or technique is better or worse. If it works for you, it's perfect. Stick up with it. And you mentioned a word called mindfulness. What does it mean?
Mindfulness. Mindfulness means simply utilizing the benefits of what you are aware of. And once again, it's a very rather subtle thing. Often what good states of mindfulness actually feel more like having a kind of a suspicion or a hunch that things are meaningful. Okay, that things are meaningful, and that it might be a good idea to pay attention. So it's the stance and it's the mode that recognizes that there is more, and that it's a very good thing to pay attention. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a mode of being that works, that allows us to be ready, be in a state of ready. You see,
like you never know what's gonna happen next. There's no matter how much money you have, how much success you have, it's not possible for you to experience the same moment twice. It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. So to connect the sense of mindfulness with that reality, mindfulness is about a capacity to engage or experience what is afresh, as it is new, so that you're not bringing projection into it. You're seeing what is,
not what was,
as it is, what is as it is in real time, in the instant. So in a sense, it's like you're bringing all of yourself into the moment, into the now.
So it starts with paying attention. It gets us mindfulness, and life happens to us when we are confronted with different emotions that not always do us best. How does being mindfulness help us confront those emotions?
The thing is that emotions simply are. We, as beings, we're designed with a capacity for potential of emotions. So when we talk about emotions, ordinarily, when we think about emotions, we think about basically the problematic emotions. You see, when we're happy and joyous and everything, which are emotions too, somehow that's not an issue. Okay. So essentially what we're talking about is anger, fear, dread, all the hard emotions. And even then, they are in essence not bad. They're just part of our design, part of what we're capable of. So when we talk about it as an issue, it's more about emotions that get stuck. Okay. The experience of getting stuck in them, or having them get stuck in us. You see, mindfulness is the mode and the means and the way in which we are able to be so present and porous and transparent that emotions move through us appropriately, because we become We're able to display anger and outrage at things that merit the anger and outrage, but we're not holding on to it. We're able to express the joy and be in joy and joyous about things that merit the joy. And so it's like it is the ease in which we are able to allow emotions so that they don't become problematic. The problem becomes when they get stuck or we get stuck in them.
Yes.
You see. And so it's in a sense, it's like we render emotions themselves a non-issue. Emotions are a natural part of us, just as our hand or our arm is a natural part of us. As long as our hand and our arm is fine, it is a non-issue. And we usually don't think about that. You see what I'm saying? And so it's rendering it into the naturalness, the utter effortless naturalness state.
Right. So if I were to say it differently, it's everybody has emotions, right? And if we process them correctly, it's good. So kind of like if we use the emotions, it's good. But if we allow the emotions to use us, and we are constantly in this loop of anger or fear.
Yeah. The reactivity, the reacting to it. And then one can really get stuck in which we have emotional feelings about the fact that we have emotions.
What's gonna happen?
You see, then we get really kind of wound up. So this is where practice of mindfulness, practice of presence, this is where it all becomes important. You see, this is when it starts to liberate us. You see, we become not stuck in reactivity. It allows presence, it allows clarity, it allows us to meet what is as it is.
Not as we want it to be.
Precisely, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Do you teach it to people?
Yeah, we get into that. I get in that with my students in classes. It comes up a lot in the private sessions and such that I do with people. Yeah, all of this comes up. And
what is the most frequent things that is keeping people in check?
Keeping people like stuck or in check?
Yes.
Or I think it is lack of awareness. You see, so it's like we think that our body is ourself, and we think that our trauma is ourself. So we get attached to it, we identify with it, and so it's like embracing something that is fundamentally kind of illusory. And it's like, and then of course the Buddhists talk a lot about the suffering that comes from attachment. Just like this is like, this unregulated, unmanaged attachment that happens. And it's just sort of like one of the hazards of being human and in a body, get attached to things. And so that it is the attachments, even the subtle attachments, that are the source of the suffering and such, of the suffering. Yes. Because we get blocked and stuck there. Hence the practice of releasing, practice of letting go, which is about examining once again, to bring it all back. When we can see the absurdity and the humor of an attachment, that's when we can release it. It's like, oh my God, wasn't I just like silly here? I thought that was so important. That was, and it loomed so big, it filled my whole field of vision. But now I can not be attached to it, let it go, and then
be completely different person.
Yeah, exactly. There's this extraordinary relief at that point, you see.
I had this metaphor that I came up with you once you were speaking the word of truth, that the body is essentially a tool as the mind is. So everything can be a tool, like the car can be a tool for you to take
Yes,
places. And if you use it unconsciously without any awareness, you don't know what's going on your left, on your right, in front of you, you're gonna have an accident.
exactly. Exactly. And so it's like if you can understand it and put it in its perspective, putting everything in its proper perspective, then you can allow it to work. You can allow it to function in an in a divine and even effortless kind of way. And it's rather interesting, to look at that. In order to be in that place, the place in which allowance can happen, it necessitates one stepping way back. It's like stepping way back and being in the larger space,
Mm.
in the bigger space, in the transcendent space, so that we can see
Allow
kind of
things
like
to happen.
precisely, precisely. And that's what the practice and the art and the discipline is about. And the practice and the art and the discipline is about. And the
So not to allow our ego to interfere with the process.
precisely. And so this is where we take like full, we allow things to flow in a way that works. You see, in a work that works for us.
Find our own truth, to find our own mission, so we can
Yeah.
step into it with bravery to truly enjoy the wonders of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the bravery part is very important. Is very important because it's like as I always say, it's like when you look at the word, look at bravery and courage and all of that. Cur is like the Latin word for heart.
Mm.
Cur. So courage is simply being in your heart,
Mm.
being in your heart, and um, dealing with the larger truth and larger reality. It allows one to put the things that might be threatening, might feel threatening, in its perspective, so that you can not be reactive, not get caught up in the reactivity. And so in that sense, it's all rather connected.
True. So you can
Yeah.
speak your own truth without any attachment that would lead to pain. That's amazing. So tell me, if somebody is interested in what you're saying, the concept of awareness, mindfulness, of just letting go resonates with them, and they would love to hear more from you, what could they do?
Let's see. Well, I make myself available to people. I have um, my website, which is Michael Dove, no space, just michaeldove.net. And that's where most of what I'm doing is on that site, and I'm easy to find. My email is YourDoveInIndia@gmail.com, which is just as it sounds, YourDoveInIndia@gmail.com. But I'm very excited now because next week I'm leaving on a 8-city tour of the United States and Canada. So I'm going across the states teaching and providing workshops in various cities. I'll be doing private sessions with people. So a lot of that information on this basically it's an 8-week, about 2 months tour of the states. It's going to be on that website too. So perhaps even some of the people who are seeing this podcast, we may be able to uh, interface in person. Also, there will be some live streaming events in association with that North American tour as well. So, that's part of the fun, is to make myself available to be with and meet and learn from and teach people. It's like my favorite thing to do.
I get it. Michael, your dove for freedom. Thank you for being with us today. It was a pleasure to have
Yes.
you.